자기가 생각하고 있던 것과 상대방이
Pastor Choi of Chuncheon, South Korea, has changed the way he pastors his church and the way he reaches out to people in his community because of his interaction with the Chuncheon Community Peace Center and Mennonite Church Canada witness worker, Bock.
I was called to help bring restorative justice to another city. One woman had stolen cabbages from another woman's field. In South Korea, the penalty for stealing vegetables from someone else's field is the offender has to pay for the entire field of vegetables, which, in this case, would have been around $20,000 US. The woman farmer was angry, and the woman who stole the cabbages was worried because $20,000 US is a lot of money. So I traveled there, and first I talked to the women individually, and then later together. When I brought them together at the end, they started talking right from their hearts, and they began to understand each other. I used the restorative justice principles that I learned from Bock. 2 hours later, the two women had reconciled.
So as a busy pastor and a church planter, why was it important for you to take this training and take this time to volunteer in this way?
As a Christian, I want to live like Christ. As a pastor, I preach and say Christ's words, but restorative justice enables me to expand my actions. The congregation supports me, and the church also practices the circle process. In our meetings, we invite people to contribute their own voice. It has made a big impact on our church.
In a country that has been at war for more than 70 years and whose history is marred by invasions and devastation, how has the message of peace through an Anabaptist lens spread in South Korea?
Long before there were Korean Anabaptists, there was a Mennonite presence in Korea. Following the devastation of the Korean War, Mennonite Central Committee reached out to help war orphans, the poor, and refugees. Mennonite Central Committee founded the Mennonite Vocational School, which formed a tight-knit community of educational and vocational training. "20 years later, in 1971, all Mennonite Central Committee programs were closed. Personal interaction continued through Mennonite Vocational School alumni gatherings and Mennonite Central Committee Korean workers gatherings. In the 1990s, Korean student enrollment in North American churches began to grow. Korean Christians were looking for alternative visions of being church. In 1994, 6 people met in a Bible study group and worked through William Epstep's The Anabaptist Story and other Anabaptist biblical teaching materials. This led to the formation of the Jesus Village Church in 1996. Mennonite Church Canada was invited into this relationship through an invitation to send international witness workers to serve in South Korea. These Canadians shared their lives with Anabaptists in South Korea, serving and learning together what it means to follow Jesus in the way of peace.
In your experience here, in the relationships that you've developed as your time here, from your perspective, why do you think that Mennonite Church Canada should be in relationship with Anabaptists here in South Korea?
Well, I think that there are a number of churches, particularly smaller churches, who are eager to have a church as a community rather than a large congregation that does not personalize the gospel, does not personalize relationships, and that's what attracted the churches that we knew to the Anabaptist tradition. They kept saying, we want community. That's what we're looking for, and the Anabaptist tradition helps us with this community.
What were some things that you learned from your time here that perhaps you even took back to Canada in use in your ministry there?
For me, would be the interaction with the young people and to encourage young people to do what they have. They're so gifted to be able to encourage them and have an older person encourage these young people to do that.
Okay, one of the things that I really appreciated about living in Korea and being with Korean, they say brothers and sisters, is we learned a language, to use a language that is a lot more humane, and it was not a theological language, it was a compassionate language of relational language. And that was really helpful to me. And even now as we come back, they keep greeting us as brothers and sisters, and we just continue to love them. I think, I'm going to use that expression, in fact, that we so came to love the Korean church family that we were part of, and to try and take that back to Canada in some way and express our love for the people of our churches there is really special.
In 2001, the Korea Anabaptist Center was founded to provide a larger platform to spread Anabaptist teaching as a gift to the church in South Korea. The present director, Sunju Moon, describes the work and focus of the center.
Hey, nice to meet you guys. I'm Sunju Moon, and then I'm director of Korea Anabaptist Center. As you see, Korea Anabaptist Center looks like that. Anabaptist face to the Korea, because it's a kind of a new concept in Korean church. Even though we also mention community, peace, and discipleship, but it's based on the Jesus life. So it's a little different. So we're gonna share the kind of three visions of Anabaptist to the church, Korean church. First on the network.
Okay.
Even though the kind of organization is a little bit changed, but you focus on the network ministry a lot, because we have some fellowship. It's really powerful to share our faith to other Christians in Korea. Start the Restorative Justice movement in Korea, but we have a separate organization. It's called COPI in Dokso. But still KAC continue that movement of restorative justice in Gangwon province. And then we also have some kind of conference or a book club or some academy. It's kind of a good place to share our faith and then our spiritual experience with other Christians. So whenever you think about Korea, pray for our movement in Korea through KAC.
As the Anabaptist movement grew in South Korea, peace-building work remained the focus. Cheryl Welk and Scott Kim talk about the reasons for this.
Why do Anabaptists in South Korea have such a strong emphasis and have, in many cases, used their whole lives to work for peace and restorative justice in South Korea?
Anabaptist movement in Korea is invited by Korean church leaders. So reason why they focus on peace building and then spreading quickly is that thirstiness, the need of the whole message, what Jesus taught us, not just evangelical, but also social justice part. That's why that is peace building is an important component of the church in Korea, especially Anabaptist Church.
And when I first came and was working with KAC, the Korea Anabaptist Center, they had three themes that they wanted to try to emphasize equally, and that was discipleship and community and peace building. And I think that the churches and the community groups that were interested in Anabaptism that we were connected with all appreciated all three themes. And discipleship was a good connection, a natural connection at looking at the social justice part as well. We connected with communities that were trying to be intentional communities and dealing with relationships. But the part that kind of connected all of that was the peace building. And that connected not only with the Christian groups that we were working with, but also outside of the church. And so that was kind of an expression of the church's mission in the larger society as well, that could be part of how we interact with everybody in society.
Anabaptists in South Korea live out their belief that Jesus is the center of their faith, community is the center of their lives, and reconciliation is the center of their work. Present witness worker Bock Kim talks about the fast development of this work in the past 20 years.
10-year perspective, I'd like you to talk a little bit about what has happened in the larger Korean context in terms of peace building and restorative justice. What has changed in those 10 years?
There are many changes, including the restorative justice area. But 2011, once it came out of Korea Anabaptist Center, there is a KOPI, Korea Peace Institute, and it developed into very well, and there are many programs, good programs. And also it influenced on policing, restorative policing, and also there is school setting. There are many people, and also many people just finish their workshop and got certificate. It's an amazing progress. We need to cheer it up continually.
Besides the development of worshiping groups of Anabaptists, Mennonite Church South Korea, and Korea Anabaptist Center, many other Anabaptist-related groups work with restorative justice and peacebuilding in South Korean society.
Yeah, the other day it was really interesting because Ian came home with materials from his preschool all about conflict resolution, and they're doing a unit on nonviolent communication and social emotional learning, and they had like restorative justice circles in their material in preschool. And then from Rohan School there was a survey that came to me, and it said, for the parents, how much do you know about something called restorative justice? And then it had a definition of it and asked all kinds of questions. So it's really fascinating to think back, like 20 years ago, the conversations that I heard about, how should this be talked about in Korea? How should it be translated? What kind of language? Who's going to be interested in this? And to see just how much has happened in that time. Like all these different seeds that have come up sprouting in different places. It's not like a linear line from, something one person or one group did. But there's like the soil is ready for this kind of thing. And so the seeds are growing, and that's just so exciting to celebrate and to support. And I think that especially for the Anabaptist churches here, if we can support that and encourage that and like help those plants to grow in a healthy way, that's wonderful.
Anabaptists in South Korea are taking seriously the exhortation in Psalm 34:14 to turn from evil and do good, seek peace, and pursue it, following Jesus as their guide. As Mennonites in Canada, we rejoice in this more than 20-year partnership that has allowed us to learn from each other. As a family of faith, we seek peace and pursue it.